Dear guests, we are starting our forum. Please take your seats.
Dear Mr. Ambassador, dear Mr. Consul General, dear members of the Swiss and Turkish business community, distinguished guests, as the President of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce in Turkey, it's my honor to welcome you this morning to the official opening of the Swiss Days Istanbul 2024 and to the Swiss Chamber's traditional Swiss Turkish Economic Forum that marks the start of a 2-day series of events of business, culture, education, musical and culinary highlights. The Swiss Days, now organized for the 3rd time, is an event that takes place under the auspices of the Consul General of Switzerland in Istanbul, in cooperation with the Swiss Business Hub and the Swiss Chamber of Commerce in Turkey. As you may see on the screen, this year's theme for the Swiss Days is Shaping Tomorrow. In this context, we aim to shed light on the collaboration and synergies that can be put together between Swiss and Turkish business community on the one side and the education community on the other, regarding training, education, development, and leadership talent. Throughout the coming 2 days, we will host a variety of presentations, workshops, and panels that will give an opportunity to our business community and to the young generation, or the generation of young graduates, to better understand each other and their respective needs and expectations, so that we can hopefully help the young graduates to build their careers paths and hopefully a bright future. From the Swiss Chamber's perspective, education has been one of the central elements of our initiatives this year that we have organized either within Istanbul or outside of Istanbul. And we hope to be able to continue on that trend with the partnership, with the support and in partnership with private sector and public sector actors. The Swiss Days benefit this year again from the generous support of sponsors, contributors and partners that you may see on both sides on the small screens. We are obviously very thankful for their involvement and interest into this project. They have all actively contributed to build this event, and I hope we will be enriching and bring meaningful value to the audience and the attendees over the weekend. Some of the members of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce are also present in the courtyard with booths, where you will have the opportunity to discuss opportunities made available within these companies for training, employment, and further education. The Swiss Days is a great reflection of the strong cooperation between the various actors of the Swiss Turkish community, and we are very pleased to have with us today the recently appointed Ambassador of Switzerland to Türkiye, His Excellency Guillaume Schörer, and Consul General Philippe Brand, who also recently took his functions in Istanbul. Excellencies, it's an honor to have you with us, and thank you for your support. Last but not least, I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the team that has worked so much and so hard to make this event possible, under the great leadership of Roland Brunn, Deputy Consul General, the team of the Swiss Consulate and Swiss Business Hub, Yasemin Öztürk, Eylem Demirkol, Melis Aytekin, Gizem Bayındır, and of course the Chamber's precious team, Eda Akalın and Dilruba Odabaş. Thank you to the entire team for their work, and hopefully this will be a success. As I conclude, I'd like to wish you a pleasant morning, an enjoyable moment, and hope that this economic forum, that will be followed in the afternoon by several panel sessions to which you're obviously kindly invited to attend, will help to build the path of career and success for the next generation. I hope you'll enjoy these 2 days of Swiss days and Swissness in these beautiful premises that are Bomontiada, and I wish you a pleasant morning. Thank you. Now, allow me to invite His Excellency Guillaume Scheurer to the stage to deliver his opening remarks. Mr. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. President of the Swiss Turkish Chamber of Commerce, dear Arpat, Mr. Consul General, dear Philippe, dear friends, if I may, I feel here very much in a friendly atmosphere, so I will skip all the titles and just refer you are very good friends of Switzerland and Turkish relations. Very warm welcome here in this premises, beautiful premises with a little bit of a Swiss touch, so it's very pleasant for us, of course, to be in this place. And if I may, since we are two new faces, mine and Philippe, but also Arpat, it's interesting because we are all, for those knowing Switzerland, that we are all coming from Neuchâtel, so we have a kind of triumvirate. The gender aspect is not well represented, but nevertheless we hope that we will be able to cover all aspects of relationship. This Swiss Turkish Economic Forum is, of course, a very important event. Many thanks to all of those, and Roland in particular was mentioned, Roland Brun, that have been at the maneuver for helping to organize this event. And the topic is very important, it's very close to my heart. It's very important for the private business, and it is certainly something where Swiss companies and the Swiss state are champions. How we can help future generation in being able to access the work world. I recently arrived in Ankara to take up my post. My wife and I are delighted to have this posting. We are very excited to discover more of the country, to deepen our understanding of its people, the economy, the culture, the history, and if I may add, of course, the culinary delights. We are truly honored to have this role in this very vibrant, dynamic country, and we look forward, obviously, to build upon the already very strong and historic ties between our two nations. You know better than I, but the numbers are quite impressive. There are more than 150 Swiss companies active in Türkiye. They are providing over 19,000 jobs, and those are high-level jobs most of the time. There is a lot of knowledge transfer also in those 19,000 jobs, and they are important to the Turkish economy. Yet the potential is still big. President Erdogan also mentioned that to me when I presented my credential to him about 2 weeks ago, that he is really happy about the Swiss presence of the private sector, but we can do more. I, of course, agree with him. but I told him we need, if I may say so, and it was a little bit more diplomatic, we need two to tango, and we need also to have adequate responses by the Turkish authorities in order to do better and to exploit all the potential we have between the two countries. The Swiss company, they shape the condition of the current and of the future Turkish labor market with their investments. They provide also very interesting perspective for the young talents that strive in Turkey. We are in Switzerland very successful in promoting this close cooperation between educational institutions and companies to make our youth fit for the job markets. This is especially true when it comes in Switzerland to the dual vocational training and education. So I believe there is also in this sphere a great potential in the Swiss approach that can be applied to the Turkish economy. The private sector plays a crucial role because this is where the demand for the labor market is defined. Educational institutions, be it academic or be it vocational training and education, striving to educate youth for a white and blue collar position, should look to the private sector to ensure a better match between the curriculum and the job demands. This also includes future developments such as integrating digitalization in the manufacturing process of the industry. It goes without saying that such a collaboration should go both ways, and the private sector should also actively reach out to the educational institutions, providing support related to the curriculum development and offering attractive on-the-job learning opportunities for their future employees. This year, Swiss Turkish Economic Forum and the Swiss Days provide a platform to do exactly this: explore, connect, exchange, and forge successful collaborations between the educational institutions and the Swiss companies to create opportunities for young people in the Turkish labor market. Matching theory and practice. And this is very often where Swiss companies are excellent at, is this matching between the theory and the practice. I would like to emphasize in this regard the important role of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce in Turkey. As one of the cornerstones of our bilateral relations, it serves as a catalyst for economic and cultural exchanges between our two countries. It plays a pivotal role in connecting Swiss and Turkish businesses, facilitating trade and investment, and fostering a dynamic exchange of ideas and expertise, also in the field of education and the future workforce for this country. We at the Swiss Embassy and at the Swiss General Consulate in Istanbul are also here for you, to support you. We act as a door opener and as a facilitator for Swiss businesses by putting you wherever necessary in contact with the competent authorities and decision makers and accompanying you when needed. Please do not hesitate to reach out to our teams, be it in Ankara or in Istanbul. Switzerland and Turkey have enjoyed a long-standing partnership built on mutual respect and shared values. In 2025, we will be celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Treaty of Friendship concluded in 1925. It will be my priority and the one of our teams, both again in Istanbul and in Ankara, to honor this important year with several events. I will also, of course, count on your support to promote our economic ties and culture, so to create a positive investment climate for Swiss companies here in Turkey and to enhance the visibility of Switzerland in this country. A particular focus will lie on the challenge of finding skilled workforce and the opportunities around know-how exchange related to the Swiss model of the dual vocational education and training. Now, more than ever, our collaboration in this area is essential as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of an increasingly interconnected and rapidly evolving world. I'm very confident that today's discussion will inspire new ideas and initiatives, bringing us closer together and strengthening our partnership in innovative ways. As I really like to say, Switzerland has been now for 13 consecutive years the most innovative country in the world. So this is quite an achievement. We can be all very proud of it. To be innovative once is maybe easy. To be the most innovative for 13 consecutive years is really remarkable. So we will continue to drive and to work into that direction. I look very much forward to hearing the insight of our esteemed speakers and panelists. I'm very eager to contribute and to continue to look after the Swiss-Turkish interest during my time here. Thank you very much for being here, and I wish you a very productive day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Ambassador. We appreciate your valuable perspectives as we look towards a future enriched by collaboration and mutual growth. Thank you very much. It's my great honor to introduce you our keynote speaker, Mr. Deniz Yüret, a full-time professor at the Computer Engineering Department of Koç University. He is also the founding director of the Koç University İşbank AI Center. Professor Yüret's insights will be invaluable in guiding us on how to leverage AI to improve educational outcomes and equip our workforce to meet the challenges of tomorrow. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Professor Deniz Yüret.
Dear guests, I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence today and try to clarify some of the misconceptions, try to give some perspective on the near future of what's going to happen. Thank you for inviting me, and I thank all the guests for attending. I have been in the AI field for the last 35 years, and I have seen many ups and downs in the meantime. So the first thing I want to impart on you is that the current era that we're in is not the first time AI has made a big jump, but this is the first time I think it has been integrated into our lives as much as it has through ChatGPT, through the video and image generation software. Everybody is now witnessing the products of AI, and it's become an integral part of our education and economy. However, to give a good perspective to what's going on right now, I think it's informative, if you allow me, to speak of how we got here in the previous eras. And what I usually look at is the history of AI basically is punctuated with these revolutions followed by what we call AI winters, where people lose interest, and then 10, 20 years later, there's another big jump. So this cycle has happened at least 4 times since I started working on this. I went to MIT right after high school in 1988, and I banged on professors' doors for a couple of months in the AI lab, and they initially refused to work with me because my English wasn't very good and they didn't know what this young kid from Turkey was going to do, but I was insistent, so they had to start giving me these jobs. So back then, AI was basically at the end of its sort of symbolic era. Right after I graduated, suddenly machine learning and statistics became the main methods of AI technologies. So I had to forget everything I learned before and re-educate myself on these new techniques. About 20 years after that, we had the deep learning revolution in the 2010s, where large neural networks were used to solve many of the problems that weren't thought to be solvable before. This was the era of very good image processing, machine translation, speech recognition, the personal assistants on your phones rely on this technology. And the final revolution, if you want to call it that, has been the large language models, ChatGPT, and technologies related to that, which came basically in 2022. I'm going to give you a little bit of an example of what these different eras looked like. And I want to dispel any notion that AI has any magic in it. We know exactly what we're putting into these models. We know exactly how they're constituted, even though we don't always know exactly why they work. So I have been working on computational linguistics, language-related technologies, summarization, machine translation, sentiment analysis, etc. So since this is close to my work, I'm going to give you some examples from machine translation. So in the symbolic AI era, the way we did machine translation was we asked the linguists, so how do you go from one language to another? And they told us, well, you have to have an expertise on the vocabularies of the two languages. You need to know which word goes to which word. You need to understand the grammar, and you need to come up with these rules that will transfer the words, transfer the word order. So this was a symbolic rule-based system with a lot of human expertise built in. And this is what basically ruled the AI world until 1990s. In 1990s, something interesting happened. Somebody suggested a system that was a lot dumber, in a sense, where a machine would go into a large corpus of, let's say, English, German parallel text, translated text, and it would try to figure out which phrases in one sentence corresponded to which phrases in the other sentence. This was all done automatically using statistical methods. And from this, looking at hundreds of millions of words, it would compile these tables of phrases and rules about how to reorder them when going from one language to another. And it suddenly surpassed in quality of translation all the work that had gone before with the advice of linguists. Suddenly linguists were out of a job in the AI labs and statisticians were in. So in 2010s, neural networks started to become popular. Neural networks are these little computational models that we use. You may think of them as little brains, general learners. You show them a bunch of input-output examples and they adapt themselves to imitate what they saw in the training set. So somebody suggested that why don't we just feed the input sentence to a neural network, converting every word and its context into a vector of numbers. literally. You do that for all the input sentence, and then you have another neural network that takes the last vector of numbers and starts generating the words in the other language. Now, I must say, if one of my PhD students came to me with this idea, I would chase them out of my office because it's such a dumb idea that, you know, we all knew back then that this would never work. But Google engineers surprised us by actually making it work. And after a couple of years of fiddling with these models, they actually made it work better than the statistical machine translation models. And these days, if you go to Google Translate, this very, very simple technology is what underlies the performance. And finally, in 2022, something again unexpected happened with ChatGPT and large language models. These models have various phases of training. They're also neural network based, but most of their initial training consists of what I try to depict in this graph. So they keep reading text and trying to predict the next word that's going to follow. And they do that for in human years, sort of millions of years, if you want to think about it that way. So the amount of the text they read would take a regular human several tens of millions of years to read. They basically finish all of internet. They do English, French, Chinese, all the languages. So this simple trick of trying to predict the next word somehow imparts an enormous range of abilities in them, which was pretty surprising. Almost none of the computational linguistics experts that I know were thinking that this was going to actually happen. The general consensus was, if there's an idea that doesn't work with 1 million words or parameters, why would it suddenly start to work when you have 1 billion words of parameters, right? So a bad idea is always a bad idea. So it turns out that's not the case. And when you grow these things in terms of their data and their models, they suddenly start picking up skills that we did not know were possible. Now, one interesting example of how you might understand this is when you're predicting the next word in a text, it's usually you look around. If you're following a the, then you probably expect an adjective or a noun, etc. You look around in your close neighborhood, and you can probably do this. But those are sort of low-hanging fruits. Imagine reading a novel, an Agatha Christie mystery story, and there's all sorts of events happening, clues given. And at the end of the novel, it says, and the murderer was ... right? So imagine trying to autocomplete that sentence. In order to autocomplete that sentence, you need to understand exactly what went on before, who the suspects were, and what the evidence was. So that takes quite a bit of intelligence. So it turns out that this next word prediction task, eventually, when the scale gets large enough, pushes these models to pick up these regularities and start understanding the human world in a deeper way. So these days, if you wanted to translate something to something else, you wouldn't use you don't need to use a specific program. You basically use ChatGPT or one of its competitors, and you just ask, can you just please translate this sentence to this language? And it will happily do it for you, even though it has never been trained on translation. So, as you can see, as we move through the symbolic, the statistical, the deep learning, and the LLM eras, what we have observed is what Richard Sutton calls the bitter lesson. The human expertise keeps going down in the state-of-the-art models. As you may remember, in the beginning, we had linguists telling us all sorts of things about the structure of language, the grammar, the syntax, the semantics, etc. All of that information is what you needed to learn in order to build a computational linguistic system. And as soon as we switched to the statistical models, all that went out the window. But you still needed some idea about how to process the words, tokenize the sentence, maybe in a agglutinative language like Turkish, figure out where the suffixes are, etc. So there was a little bit of knowledge that you still needed. And when we went to neural networks or LLMs, even that disappeared. Right now, we basically don't do anything. We just feed this machine a lot of data, and it figures out everything itself. So in this graph, I tried to show that sort of as we go further and further, human expertise goes down. Instead, scale, model and data scale go up, and that's what brings better models with more accuracy. Now, since we don't actually design these systems anymore, people are concerned about explainability. So these are black box models that have been trained on, let's say, billions of words of text. You ask them a question, they give you an answer. Should you trust this answer? Why this answer and not some other answer? It used to be that we would be able to open up our models, look at the calculations, and tell you exactly why a particular system gave a particular answer. This is no longer the case. Not because we don't know what's in the model, we know exactly what's in the model. What's in the model is several 100 billion parameters. It's just that the model has become so complicated that it has become impossible to follow the calculations exactly and explain why certain behaviors are displayed. On the other hand, soon we'll be able to actually ask the model, why did you say this? And it will actually give us an explanation. And if we like that explanation, then we can move on with that information. Now, how do we know the model won't lie to us? Or how do we know the model knows its own reasoning of why it produced a certain idea? Well, my answer to that is, how do we know humans understand why they have certain ideas? What we do is we basically ask for an explanation from them, and if we like their explanation, then we trust that information. And the same thing will be true for large language models. So instead of doing neurosurgery on these models to try to understand what's going on, we'll just have to converse with them, and they'll try to convince us. Now, I mentioned several revolutions in AI history. Is this one any different? When I gave this talk about 10 years ago, it was called the third AI revolution. And I predicted that every time an AI revolution happens, about 10 years of excitement follows. And after that, about 10, 20 years of AI winter, once people actually understand the limits of the technology. Well, this time, history surprised me. And just as the deep learning revolution sort of was losing its steam, this large language model revolution followed up, so things speeded up. So that's definitely one difference. Innovation is coming faster and faster now. And the second big difference is, starting with the 80s, we had AI in our commercial systems. If you go to an airport, the scheduling software runs AI algorithms. Google, when you search for something, runs AI algorithms. But it wasn't as explicit, I should say. And more, these explicit AI systems are becoming our partners in education, personal assistance, professional assistance, and I think they are probably here to stay. So I don't foresee an AI winter anytime soon. Another difference in this revolution, in the fourth revolution, is that in the previous ones, we had what we called narrow AI. So you basically create an AI system to do machine translation, or you created something for computer vision. More and more, we're moving towards general intelligence. So these large language models aren't experts in only one task, but they can do a variety of things, and they can learn on the job. You can actually give them a few examples of what you want them to do, and they will understand and follow your instructions. So that is definitely different. That is some behavior that we've never seen before. So, in the last few slides, I want to sort of speculate on the impact this technology will have on our lives for the near future. I don't think anybody can say anything definite for far future, so I'll take some liberty to speculate a little bit. So first, parents keep asking me, what should we do with our kids? What should we teach them? How should the education be? What are going to be the careers that are popular 10 years from now? Should everybody go and do an AI major or something? And my answer to them is we don't know because the situation is changing so fast. One thing I can tell for sure is personal AI tutors are coming very soon, so the quality of the education for kids who want it will be going up quite a bit. So if you want to learn something, there will be a teacher, private teacher for you at a very low cost that understand exactly how you think and exactly how you learn and adapt to your needs. As I said, it's difficult to predict the future skills that are needed. So what I give as an advice to these concerned parents is we should go back to sort of the Enlightenment ideals of what education should be, which is to improve human potential and create people that have the ability to reason and ability to communicate. I don't think these skills are going to be irrelevant anytime soon. They will be relevant no matter what the shape the world will take. So make sure your kids learn to reason in a variety of different ways. Skills of reasoning quantitatively, scientifically, ethically, morally, economically. These are all skills that we will need to solve the problems of the future. And also the ability to communicate and connect with other people. When most of the jobs are done by AIs, a lot of the popular jobs, I should say, are going to involve connecting to other people because people want to work with other people. And those jobs are going to be the most popular ones. So that's my 2 cents on where education is going. The other question is which jobs are going away? Which jobs are going to be popular? So I can tell you, I just got a call from a friend of mine who for the last 20 years was acting as an academic writing editor. He had customers from India, China, who were writing academic papers but weren't very good in English, and he would edit and fix these papers and prepare them for publication. He says that customer base completely dried now and he can't make money doing this anymore. So his was one of the first jobs eliminated because these days you can give a very badly worded paragraph to ChatGPT and it will spit out a very eloquently written piece that preserves the meaning. So things like editing, translation, possibly driving are on the chopping block. So these jobs will get eliminated. In the near term, I don't think high-skilled jobs like lawyers, accountants, doctors, scientists will get eliminated for the next 5-10 years. What I think will happen is that each of these professions are going to be making more and more use of AI assistants. So a doctor will not diagnose you by himself, but he will have AI assistants that are experts in various different areas and will help him with the decision. But the final treatment is going to be decided still by your doctor. And of course, new careers will appear. It is hard to say which ones those are going to be. AI engineer is one obvious one right now, but I don't know how long this will be the case and how relevant that particular skill will be 5-10 years from now, given the speed of development. I have to forget everything I knew about every 5-10 years and relearn everything. So I think future employees should be ready to reinvent themselves every 5-10 years with the speed we have. But I am optimistic because when you look at the last century, if you ask somebody in the beginning of 1900s, what jobs will be available 100 years from now, I don't think they'd be able to guess 90% of the jobs that we're currently involved in. You know, YouTube influencers, social media analysts, etc. These are things that were impossible to imagine 100 years ago. So it is not possible, I think, for us to imagine what the demands will be in the future. What are we currently working on? So what's going to happen with the next ChatGPT 5, 6, 7, etc. So these are some of the things that we know are going to happen maybe in the next 5 years, so I want to briefly mention them. One popular word these days is agents. So we don't want AIs that just answer our questions, but we want AIs to do our tasks. So for example, you're trying to book a trip to some foreign country. You want an AI assistant who can go search for the best prices for the flights, for the hotels, take into account your needs and your habits and your culinary preferences and make the necessary reservations, etc. This requires these what we call agents that are smart and that are able to use tools, that are able to interact with lots of different systems. And these are definitely currently being developed right now and will be in common use in the next 5 years. In terms of improving the intelligence of AI, I think one of the most promising directions is reflection. What I mean by that is give these AIs more time to think. Some of you may have heard that last week, OpenAI came up with their 4.0, what do they call it? Their new model that basically spends more time thinking. So it basically writes to itself. It has a scratch pad. It can write tens and tens of pages thinking and critiquing its own thinking, etc. Of course, OpenAI doesn't show us those pages, but after spending that much time, when it finally decides on the answer, it gives us the answer, and that predictably works a lot better than forcing the model to say the first thing that comes to its mind. Even talking to a genius person, you would expect that the first thing that comes to that person's mind may not be the best answer. The same thing is true for AI, so giving them more tools and time and capacity to think is going to improve their IQ. And currently these LAS systems can solve PhD level math and physics questions at or above human level, and sometimes way below the human level. So I want to again emphasize that this is a different type of intelligence, and the errors it makes are the sorts of errors that no human would make. On the other hand, the successes it has is also significant. Multimodality means being able to reason in multiple modalities like sound, movement, vision, being able to move around in a physical world. That's also coming very soon. And the most common application, I'm guessing, will be popular in the coming decade is personal and professional assistance that we mentioned before. Now, finally, what about the far future? What's going to happen? Can we predict what's going to happen? I think at this point it's very hard, because I don't know if this current system of developing large language models is having diminishing returns, or is it going to continue improving exponentially? So we all have to watch for GPT-5 and GPT-6 and see, are the improvements incremental, slightly better? Then we can maybe make some predictions. If they keep improving enormously and surprising us at every turn, then predictions is more difficult. So if the first comes to pass, if the current improvements become incremental, then this technology is going to mature. But we'll still see many new applications. We'll see significant social and economic impact. Alignment, what we call alignment, meaning the ability to direct these models to do what's good for humanity is going to be really important. We need to spend time thinking about that. If the progress, though, keeps going exponentially, then, as I mentioned, it's going to be more difficult to predict what's going to happen, and alignment, forcing this technology to work for the benefit of humanity, is going to be even more important. I want to say one more thing about alignment. We're not very good at it. So we keep developing these technologies like finance, social media, etc., with the best of intentions. But then these technologies, when they're beyond a certain level of complexity, start working against us. So the social media algorithms are not out there to make you all stressed and nervous. But what ends up happening is that they're after clicks, and they realize that if they give you something shocking, they get more clicks. So they basically adopt that behavior, which turns out to be very bad for society. So these types of unintended consequences is going to be more and more seen, and we need institutions that can basically guard against the unintended consequences of this technology, because the positive side is really great. The productivity gains and the economic development coming from these technologies are enormous, but we have to be vigilant to make sure that the downside is limited for our society. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So I was a student of yours actually years ago. So I had this question. I had asked it to a lot of people, experts in AI. Couldn't get a really good answer. I was wondering your perspective. So I had read research about how the data we fed into AI right now is just a lot of text. But when you compare it with a 2-year-old's intake, a human 2-year-old intake, it is very little, because we see, we hear, and that's a lot of more data inside. So people have been saying that because humans get the notion of self at around 2 years, if we were to feed these models the whole package of everything that a 2-year-old human absorbs, they might get the self-identity. What do you think about that?
Thank you for the question. So I think what's missing right now, as you mentioned, is we have this intelligence that's only trained on text, which is totally not how humans develop. We have social interactions, we have physical interactions. If you watch the baby develop, you see the stages it goes through and the abilities it acquires. Obviously, the current batch of AI models are nowhere close to that. So they might match us in some abilities of solving math and physics problems and writing beautiful prose, etc. But they're definitely an alien type of intelligence. They're not a human type of intelligence. Okay? So they make alien mistakes that no human would ever make. And they also are sometimes very smart, and they can think of ideas and solutions that no human has thought about before. So I think currently work is progressing in the research area to equip these systems with more multimodal inputs. So give them a robot body, have them interact physically and socially in the real world, and we're all curious to see what that will allow them to do. So as you mentioned, maybe that will actually turn them into more human-like intelligences, which I hope. But I think the reason you couldn't get a straight answer to your question is nobody knows the answer right now. We're just trying it out and seeing what happens.
Thank you so much. This was really enlightening, and I'm also very interested in AI. I'm a professor, and I'm also international president of Organization Women International Trade, and I use AI. I use ChatGPT, etc. And what I've discovered is a bit of, how shall I say, there is still unconscious bias included in AI. If you really ask questions around gender, there is some kind of bias output that includes ethical, religion, gender, etc. How can we overcome? What can AI do or needs to do to overcome and be more inclusive? I've got another question. As part of professor, because I'm also a professor at a Swiss private university, and everyone uses ChatGPT, right? So any thesis that I receive is actually coming from AI. How as professors, and you are the expert in that, can we overcome them? Okay, I know there is a plagiarism, I use Quillbot, etc., but this is getting out of hands. What we need is really the creativity still needs to consist within the human brain, specifically in the young generation. And if everyone uses ChatGPT, where are we there? So I would be interested in your feed forward in this regard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for two great questions. I'll start with the last one. So when ChatGPT came out, university committees were convened. Everybody was panicking, especially in the humanities. What are we going to do? How are we going to evaluate student essays? How do we know they wrote them, etc.? So I sort of find this panic similar to previous panics that we had. So when I was a kid, it was the calculators that were going to melt our brains. Then it was the internet and Wikipedia and then YouTube, etc. So we basically initially tried to restrict kids from accessing these technologies, thinking that they will hamper their learning, but eventually we adapt and we give up. I don't know the exact answer to how that's going to happen, but I can give you a good example that I got from my daughter's high school philosophy teacher. I said, how do you deal with this ChatGPT stuff? And he said, well, I asked the students to write a report on, for example, what ChatGPT gets wrong about Plato, okay? Debug its mistakes. So then what the students have to do is they have to actually engage with ChatGPT, but they also have to learn what Plato actually said and what ChatGPT gets wrong, and they have to engage their critical thinking. And I thought that was a very ingenious idea. I think ideas like this are going to have to replace all traditional learning ideas, because these kids are going to grow up with these tools. We can't take these tools away from them. They are going to use these tools later at work, in their careers, so we have to integrate them into their education. But I agree with your concern that they also have to learn to think for themselves. That's an important skill that we cannot lose. So as educators, we have to come up with creative solutions like this to both encourage them to use these tools and develop their own thinking skills. Now, I forgot the first question.
Just to repeat on that, it's really the unconscious bias that we have within.
Oh, bias, okay. Yeah, bias have been a very active area of research for the last 5-10 years. Everybody in the research community is aware of the biases the AIs have. Now, when I say the biases AIs have, I feel bad because it's not the AI's fault. It's the human data that we feed the AI that actually contains these biases, and AI is just reflected back on us. So it's actually, the biases are coming from us, and they're just learning from us. Now, how can we protect against this? There's techniques that people are coming up with. As an example, let's say you have an AI that is reading CVs of candidates for a job and will make recommendations. And you want this AI to be gender neutral. You don't want it to be using the gender of the applicant as part of its information. There are techniques in machine learning that basically will tell the system, forget about the gender. So, I mean, simple tricks like erasing the names and erasing the titles, etc. doesn't work, because AI can actually sniff the gender of the applicant from very, very indirect clues. So you have to even fight harder than that. And you have to say, basically, find the part of your brain that can predict this candidate's gender and basically erase that part of your brain and just base your decision on everything else. So there are techniques that people are developing that will fight with biases in that way. And this is actually a very small example of the alignment problem I was talking about earlier. So how do we make sure these machines actually have the values and the goals that we need them to have? I think this is a very active area of research. I'm optimistic that we'll develop solutions as long as there is a social will to push the technology in that direction.
Thank you, Professor Juret, for your very insightful presentation, especially for the fact that you gave us a little bit of a history of AI. My name is Stefan, I'm from the Austrian Consulate, from the commercial section, and we have quite strict rules about how we can use AI in our job and what data we can put in. So my question would be to you, how careful do we have to be with the data that we put in? Who then has access to it within the models? And in connection with this as well, there's only, of course, a couple very big companies that have developed those models. Also, in terms of the regulation of them and in terms of the monopolistic structures that could result out of this, where do you see the future going in that regard?
Thank you for the question. So in terms of privacy, this is not unlike any other technology that we've dealt with so far. So when you enter some string to the Google search box, you're basically risking that information from leaking as well. So it's not a new problem. There were a couple of mishaps in the early days of OpenAI, but I think they actually closed down most of their openings. Same with Google and Cohere and all the other major players in this area. Meta, on the other hand, is actually giving out its models for free for the open source community, and there's small companies that basically build custom AIs starting from their foundation models. One method that people use, especially in very sensitive areas like maybe defense, national security, etc., is to not send anything online and keep the models local, on local machines, and use them locally. So if you're extremely paranoid about information getting out, that would be my advice. Run your own models locally. The cutting-edge commercial models are slightly better, but the difference is less than 6 months. So the open source models catch up to the best commercial models in a time frame of months, not years. Developing your own technology these days is not infeasible.
One question. Just want to build on something here, Professor. Because you said humans are feeding into AI. Of course, we are the ones who are inputting the data. What about the women's lens? Because we need to have more women encouragement in feeding into AI as well. We know for a fact that women in digital, women in tech are not so populated. The percentage is less. So how can we overcome or encourage women to feed into AI itself as well? The perspective, the thinking, and everything else to have a more inclusive and equal output from ChatGPT and AI itself. Are there any measures or is in your circle of influence that you can or willing to do to encourage even further young professionals, women professionals in the sphere of technology and digital? Thank you.
I think the answer to this question is not specific to AI. It also covers maybe other fields of STEM or academic fields where there is an imbalance. I can speak from personal experience. We do encourage our female students to apply and pursue careers in AI. I'm proud to say that about half the faculty, 15 faculty of the Quiz AI Center is female, and a significant percentage of our graduate students, our researchers, are also female. I think we need good role models, and we need structures to encourage women to take fields like this more seriously.
Hi. So I work in the crypto industry. I'm Okyanus Selman. I'm from Cointier FinTech. And there are currently projects on DAO on Ethereum baseline that center AI and planning to turn municipalities and voting systems with AI, and also there are talks within banks to use AI to choose which clients to give credits to, and they are trying to further these projects into reality, and like in the near future, we will, if you're a beginner, if you don't have a good credit score, there is a great chance that you won't get any credit. And what do you think about these furtherments with AI on their effect on society?
Well, thank you. So I believe in the last 10-20 years, most credit decisions have been made by AI. So it's not a new phenomenon. Big banks don't approve your credit card using humans because the load is too big. They have computer systems that basically analyze your data and decide what credit to assign to you. And I think this is going to be more and more prevalent in our society. I would say two things. One, there are all these disaster stories about people being unfairly punished or unfairly kept from opportunities because of bugs in these systems. So any system that we use publicly should be allowed to be scrutinized publicly as well. We cannot have private companies give us closed source, hidden black boxes that we then use to make public decisions. If we're actually making public decisions, then we have to actually know what's inside this technology, and we have to be able to have independent third-party investigators look and find any weaknesses in them. So that's definitely one thing. And the second thing is basically, just like we have institutions that check people's work to make sure that they don't decide unfairly, they give good decisions. We need institutions to check the work of AI as well. I think the AI bureaucrats are coming, and just the economics of the situation and the scale will make this so. But we need to have institutions in place that can control them and that can guide them. We can't trust their judgments 100%.
Merhaba hocam. I'm Serhan Yılmaz from Sabancı University. I've got plenty of questions that I could ask you, but for the sake of time, I'll just cut short to one. Regarding the future of these models, is scale all we need?
That's a currently very active area of debate. Is scale all we need? Historically, that has been proven time and time again, and I don't think we've run to the end of the scaling opportunities. I think more scaling will continue giving us more performance in the near future. Even though people have started saying we're running out of data and there's no more human-generated text, we've literally, we are currently using a large percentage of human-generated text to train these models, and there is not that many more orders of magnitude to grow, but that excludes the possibility of artificially generated data, AIs training other AIs, and also multimodal data. There is zillions of YouTube videos that we're not actually making use of right now properly, and other sources of information. And eventually, when these AIs acquire bodies and start walking around us and working with us, then the amount of information they have access to will be potentially infinite. So I think scaling will keep working for quite a while. I used to think being smarter when you're designing these models would be more important. But unfortunately, in my old age, I'm slowly changing my mind after seeing time and time again that human expertise got beaten by engineers being able to scale models and data further. So these days, I'm a fervent believer in scale. I think we haven't seen the end of scale improvements yet.
Thank you. If I may follow up on that, scaling, I do completely agree with what you've just said. And I just wonder your thoughts on inference time scaling. So OpenAI, you definitely know that they have a new model or one preview, chain of thought reasoning and everything. And but isn't that a little bit like some kid who's not smart enough but does hard work? Or like, because inherently, cognitively, we cannot teach a bird how to solve integrals, no matter how hard it thinks. But is that comparable, or is this just some redundant comparison?
What exactly is the question? Can you...
The question is whether or not you think inference time scaling improves like IQ capabilities. It's not exactly IQ of large language models, or if it's just a more refined answer, but there are still some limitations.
Yeah, I think both training time and inference time scaling is currently has a positive gradient. It still gives us significant improvements, as the last OpenAI models showed us. So spending more time in inference time, thinking about problems more deeply is definitely helping and is going to continue to help. And I think once these models have the ability to visualize things and use other modalities as well in their thinking, they will definitely exceed human performance in well-defined question-answer fields. So math, physics, etc. Those types of problem-solving areas where the answer is clear, I think we will see they will exceed human performance very soon.
I see. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for inviting me.
When I was listening to Deniz Hocam, I was just thinking that when I was young, a university student, we were going to libraries for our research, for our articles. There was no ChatGPT. But Deniz Hocam, I don't know which generation is lucky, our generation or the new generation with ChatGPT, AI. Always a question mark, I think. Thank you very much. We would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our keynote speaker for his insightful speech. Thank you so much. We have a 20 minutes coffee break for refreshment, for networking, and afterwards we will continue with a great and engaging panel discussion. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Seem to be confused, he belongs to me.